Hello, this is the review for the quiz on activities 28 and 29 polar graphs. On the quiz there are a total of 13 questions, so less than what you have here. 3 of them are multiple choice. There's a few that are matching, there's some graphing, some equations, basically everything you see here. Just that the questions will be maybe written in a different way, but the information is the same. Now, when you're asked to write polar coordinates as other points, give that same point different names, I would think about its position as relative to the x-axis. So if we think about 260, we're 60 degrees up from 0. There's lots of ways to get to this angle. We're only interested in going in the positive and the negative direction, and we're also going to talk about how to get to this part, the other side of 60. So we have 260. Now there's another way we can get there. We can go down and around. We can go in the negative angle, so that's going to be negative 300. But we're still going to be out 2, so we're going to be 2 out, but spin the negative 300 way. The other 2 points are going to have a negative 2 in them. What that means is that we're going to manage to get the point to be right here, and the negative 2 is going to zoom it back through the pole. So now the goal is to, how do we get to this angle and give a name for this angle? Well, we could go all the way around from 0. Remember, we're 60 degrees away from the x-axis. So we're going to still be 60 degrees away from the x-axis, but the x-axis is now 180. So if we go in the positive direction, that's going to be 240. So negative 2, 240. Please make sure that you put that degree symbol, which I forgot, as you can see. That's the only way that it looks like a polar point versus XY, rectangular point. We need the degree symbol on that second value. Now, the other way to get to that same spot is to go down. And so if we go down and around this way, we need to know what's the angle there. And that's going to be 180. And so if we think about this being negative 180, we're 60 degrees away. So this is going to be negative 120. So that's the best way to do it. You're going to have 2 positive r's. So we were given a positive r. We found a positive r. You're going to have 2 negative r's as well. Now to find the polar coordinates, you can use the calculator keys. That's on second apps. That button right there. And this is going to be rectangular polar. So r to polar. And we would like to have r and theta. Or you can use the formulas that you'll be given on the formula sheet. To find r, it is the square root of 7 squared and 10 squared. And decimals are fine. We'll go to 2 decimal places, so 12.21. Now, negative 710 is located in the second quadrant, so you want to make sure your angle is correct. If we do the inverse tangent of y over x, 10 over negative 7, you get negative 55.01. Well, we want to make sure we have it in a in a positive angle, so we're going to add 180 to that. So this is 124.99 degrees. And again, we need that degree symbol. Now these next 3, the idea is that they're so easy to graph that you can graph them very easily. And then from the picture, you're very good at understanding what the picture's telling you. You would be able to write the equation without using any formulas. Just be able to look at it and tell. Now, if you cannot graph on number 3, you can certainly put it into the calculator. It's pretty easy to do. Make sure you're in polar. Basically, it's negative and it's sine. So sine is the y-axis. Negative means we're on the bottom half of the y-axis. And the 5 is the diameter. So that means halfway is the center. So your center is at 0, negative 2.5. And if the center is at 2.5, then the radius is also 2.5. And so you can kind of eyeball it a little bit and be able to draw your circle. It is a circle. Then to write the equation, you want to use the rectangular form, which you'll be given the formula. It's on that formula sheet. X squared plus y, and then the opposite of the y value, 2.5 quantity squared, equals 2.5 squared. Now you don't want to leave it like that. Please simplify that and give the value. Now, theta equals 150. This does not go into the calculator, but theta equals 150 is the actual line on this polar grid. Here's 180, and so theta equals 150 is this line right here, 30 degrees up from 180. And so it's all the points on that line. Slope is tangent, or tangent is slope. And so all we need is the tangent of 150. Basically, you take the tangent of both sides. So the tangent of theta, that's going to be your y over x, equals the tangent of 150. Now, you don't want to have a decimal here. You get a decimal out of the calculator, but you can figure out that that's negative radical 3 over 3. And when you cross multiply, you get 3y equals negative x radical 3, and then divide both sides by 3. So it is y equals negative x radical 3 over 3. And for this third one, where is all the radius equals 3? Well, if we go around in every single angle where the radius equals 3, is this circle right here. This circle has a center of 0, 0, and of course, the radius is 3. So to write this equation, this would be x squared plus y squared equals 3 squared, which is 9. This is different from the next 5 that you see. These are a little bit more complicated, and you're going to have to use the formulas in order to switch them from polar to rectangular. So if you look at the formulas for r, we have that r is the square root of x squared plus y squared. But we also need to have that x is equal to r cosine theta. So the goal is we got to have r next to the cosine. Well, if we're to achieve that, we have to multiply both sides by r in number 6. So now we're going to have r squared equals 5r cosine theta plus 6r sine theta. This is a circle. If you're not sure, you could put that into r equals and graph it. You'll see that it's a circle. It's not the circle like number 3 or number 5. The center is moved anywhere, basically. But it's not going to be on the x or y axis, and the center's not at 0, 0. So this one's a little bit more complicated. So r squared is really x squared plus y squared. And we're going to take out this r cosine theta, that becomes x. So this is 5x. Our sine theta is really y plus 6y. Since it's a circle, we're going to have to complete the square. Move that 5x over, complete the square. Then we have y squared. Move the 6y over, complete the square. We have nothing on that right-hand side, and we're going to need 2 things. Half of 5 is 2.5, and 2.5 squared is 6.25. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So we add 6.25 and 9 to both sides. So this is going to be the letter, the first sign, the number you squared. Pattern is the letter, the first sign, the number you squared, which was 3. And on that right-hand side, we get 15.25. This is the equation in rectangular form. Number 7 is much easier. Secant we don't like because we don't have that in our formulas. In the formulas, though, we do have cosine. So I'm going to take this secant and shove it to the bottom, and it becomes cosine. Then you just cross multiply. We get r cosine theta equals, go the other way, negative 4. Well, r cosine theta is x. I know I got a lot of writing here, but this is x equals negative 4. For number 8, start by cross multiplying. When you cross multiply, distribute. So 2r cosine theta minus 4r sine theta. Again, we're trying to force an r to be next to the sine and the cosine. When you cross multiply the other direction, you just get negative 3. On that left-hand side, they both have an r, so we'll factor it out. r times 2 cosine theta minus 4 sine theta equals 3. To get r by itself, we're just going to divide both sides by this entire quantity. So we're left with r equals 3 over 2 cosine theta minus 4 sine theta. Do not try to think, well, 1 over cosine is secant, or I can reduce these numbers. Leave it as a fraction, please. Now, to go the other direction. Now we want r equals. Remember, the goal for polar is to have r by itself, have the letter r written once, not squared, none of this stuff. So we're going to take out the y, and in its spot we're going to go r sine theta, because that's what the formula says. Then to get r by itself, divide both sides by the sine of theta. This is gone. We're left with r equals. Now, you can't have a fraction on this. This is not an addition problem like the last problem. This sine has to be pulled up out of the bottom. And when you flip sine over, you get cosecant. So we have -8 cosecant theta. R is all by itself. There's no fractions with single words. That is finished. Number 10, you can see is a line. So we're going to have 3r cosine theta, take out the x, plus 5, we're going to take out the y, r sine theta equals 4. As I look back at number 8, I just went around in circles and I don't even know what happened. That's not even close. I got the same answer as the question. I'll do number 8 again. Sorry. This number 8 is wrong. Get rid of it. I started it right and then I don't know what happened to my brain. Apologize. So we're going to factor out this r here and we're left with 3 cosine theta plus 5 sine theta. And this is where we divide by that quantity. So now we have r equals 4 over 3 cosine theta plus 5 sine theta. So let's go back to number 8. Number 8 started off r equals r over 1. This is -3, 2 cosine theta minus 4 sine theta. I'm very sorry about this. When you cross multiply, distribute. So we have 2r cosine theta minus 4r sine theta. Other way, -3. Well, r cosine theta is x, so this is 2x. R sine theta is y, so minus 4y. And then that equals -3. This is the answer in rectangular. Now there's a lot of these questions right here, 11 through 16. There will not be this many on the quiz. I don't know why I just snapped back into the little picture. So on this one, we're going to name each one. Now, if you don't know what it is, put it in the calculator and take a look at the picture. This one is a circle. And because of the word cosine, it has symmetry with the x-axis. If you don't know that, you don't have to know it. Put it in the calculator. Look at the graph. This is a limacon. And this one has symmetry with the y-axis because of the word sine. Here the numbers match. So when we have two numbers that match, 2 and 2, doesn't matter about their signs. This is a cardioid. And because of the word cosine, it has symmetry with the x-axis. Number 14 is a rose. Because it's even, it has symmetry with x and y-axis. Even number of petals always will. 15 is another limacon. And this one has symmetry with the y-axis because of the word sine. Number 16 is another rose, but it has an odd number of petals. And so when you have an odd number of petals, you have to look at the word. So this is a rose. And because of the word sine, it has symmetry with the y-axis. So there's not 6 of those on the quiz. So that's the main difference between this and the quiz. Writing an equation. After you write it, put it in the calculator and see if you're correct. Don't just not check it. This is a cardioid, which means A has to equal B. It has symmetry with the y-axis, which means we have to use the word sine. It goes left and right 2, so that means you know that the first number is 2. Now, because it goes down, this has to be a negative. Right? It's on the negative part of this y-axis. And then we know this number also has to be a 2, because 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. And you can see that it has a big part goes to 4. And then this is going to be sine theta. Now, if you want to have either a positive or a negative out front, that's up to you. But this sign right here has to be a negative. That's not an option. Number 18 is a rose. It has 3 petals, so we know we're going to have 3 theta. This one has symmetry with the y-axis, so this is also going to be sine. The length of each petal is 4. So we know that this is going to be 4 sine 3 theta. If you put a negative sign in front of that, it goes the other direction. A negative sign makes it have symmetry, or I'm sorry, it flips it around and it makes it draws like this. So that's not the same answer. So you cannot have a negative. No negative in the front of that. Drawing some graphs. Please plot points. Please don't just look at your calculator and eyeball it. If you don't plot the points and actually try to draw the graph the way it's intended, it's not a sketch. I would like you to plot the points. You're not going to get the full credit, or maybe even any credit, depending on how bad it is. So for 19, each petal length is 3. And the petals are at 0, 90, 270, and 180. Oops, I went in the wrong order, but I said them all right. Now, as far as the width goes, on the 30 degree, it's at like 1.5, or close to it, 1.4, somewhere in there, somewhere 1.6. So it's run somewhere between 1 and 2. But we had to skip a line and then get to that. So you don't have to look at the calculator for each thing. You can do this by just finding a pattern and copying the pattern. But as you can see, I'm plotting 3 points for each petal. And each petal has consistency in length and width, and this is what I'm expecting to see from you. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to you have to make a good attempt. Now for number 20, you know it goes through 0, 0. It's going to go up 2, down 2. It's going to go 4 out to the right. This is a cardioid. If you cannot draw the cardioid from those 3 points, then plot more points. It's round. It's not pointy. Number 21, it says on there to count by 2s. So we know that we're going to go 9 in the downward direction. But if we count by 2s, it ends up right there. Left and right, you're going to go 4, but we're going to count by 2s to keep it consistent. The inner loop will have a length of 1, but we're counting by 2s, so it's only going to look like a 1/2. And then we have the outer loop of this limacon. So that's everything that's on the quiz. If you have any other questions, please stop by during E&I or any other time that you might have.